Welcome to Voices of BioWellnessX with Daniel and Sophie. Today, we're jumping into the deep dive. This is where we take, well, a whole bunch of source material, articles, notes, research stuff that can be pretty dense sometimes, and we don't just skim it. We really unpack it, break it down, and pull out the absolute must-know insights for you. Think of it like your fast track to really understanding a topic with maybe a few surprising facts and hopefully enough interest to keep you listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're really glad you're here with us, sharing that same curiosity that drives us to explore these things. Our goal, really, is to guide you through it all, help you connect the dots, and get those aha moments without, feeling buried in information.
Exactly. And today's topic is, well, it's a really fascinating one in the wellness space right now. We're diving deep into cannabigerol, or CBG, as you'll usually hear it called. People often call it the mother of all cannabinoids. Sounds pretty important, right?
It does, and for good reason.
We're going to look at its effects, especially around anxiety and just general well-being, how it actually works in your body, and how it fits into that bigger picture of holistic health.
That's the plan. We're going to boil down all the research and notes we've gotten to something clear and useful. We'll cover what CBG actually is, how it interacts with your body's systems, its potential benefits, which are quite significant, and maybe most importantly, give you some practical tips on what to look for if you're thinking about trying it yourself. We want you to finish this feeling genuinely informed, understanding different angles, maybe having learned something new and surprising, but definitely not overwhelmed.
Okay, sounds good. Let's start right at the beginning then. What exactly is CBG and why that nickname, the mother of all cannabinoids? It's definitely catching on.
It really is gaining attention. So cannabigerol, CBG, the natural compound, a cannabinoid, found in the cannabis plant. Pretty straightforward so far. But that nickname, the mother, or sometimes even the stem cell cannabinoid, that comes from its really unique role in how the plant actually creates all these compounds. It's a biosynthesis pathway.
Okay, biosynthesis. Tell me more about that. How does it become the mother?
Well, it all starts with something called cannabigerolic acid, CBGA. That's just a raw acidic form of CBG. Think of a young cannabis plant starting to grow. CBGA is the very first cannabinoid it produces. It's like the foundational molecule. Then as the plant grows up, gets exposed to light, heat, or just time passes, that's called decarboxylation, this CBGA becomes the precursor. It doesn't just stay CBGA, it breaks down, and enzymes convert it into the other big cannabinoids we know, like CBD and THC.
Whoa, wait, so CBD and THC come from CBGA? They actually start as CBGA?
Exactly. They literally begin their existence in the plant as CBGA.
That's incredible. So it's the starting block, the source code almost, for all these other famous compounds. That completely changes how you think about the plant.
Precisely. If you didn't have CBGA first, you wouldn't get the CBD, the THC, or many of the other minor cannabinoids later on. It's fundamental. And for a long time, that's why you only found tiny, tiny amounts of actual CBG in most mature plants, because it was so busy being converted into everything else. It got used up, basically.
Right, okay. But now CBG products are definitely available. I see them more and more, so something must have changed. How did we get from trace amounts to actual products?
That's a great point, and it's been a huge development. Breeders and growers got really focused. They started specifically cultivating cannabis strains to keep high levels of CBG instead of letting it all convert. Through selective breeding, they found and developed strains, like one mentioned in our sources called superglue CBG, that are naturally high in CBG when harvested. This breakthrough, this focused cultivation, is what made CBG much more accessible and affordable for people wanting to try it. It basically unlocked it.
That is a game changer, taking it from rare to readily available. Okay, let's nail down some other key things people need to know. First, and this is probably the biggest one for many people, it's non-psychoactive, right?
Absolutely. Critical point. Unlike THC, which is known for causing a high isolated CBG, does not. This means you can use it, enjoy its potential benefits, during your workday, whenever, without feeling impaired or stoned. You stay clear-headed, focused. That's a major plus for people looking for natural wellness options without disrupting their daily life.
Yeah, being able to take something for wellness but still drive, work, handle responsibilities, that's huge. Addresses a big concern right away. And it's completely natural from the plant.
Yes, 100% natural. It's found in the hemp plant, specifically, not synthesized in a lab somewhere. It comes directly from the plant's own processes. That natural origin is important to a lot of people pursuing, a holistic approach.
Okay. And the legal side. Always a question with cannabinoids. How does CBG stand legally?
Good question. And thankfully, fairly clear now at the federal level anyway. The 2018 Farm Bill in the U.S. federally legalized hemp and its derivatives. That includes CBG. The key condition, the really important part, is that the product must contain less than 0.3% THC by total dry weight. As long as it meets that threshold, hemp-derived CBG is federally legal across the U.S. This opened up the market massively.
Okay, less than 0.3% THC. Got it. That provides a lot of clarity. So we know what it is, where it comes from. It's natural, non-psychoactive, and federally legal under that THC limit. Now let's get into the really fascinating part. How does it actually work inside our bodies? That's where the magic happens, isn't it?
It really is. To understand CBG's effects, you first need to understand the system it interacts with, the endocannabinoid system, or ECS.
Hmm.
And this isn't just for processing cannabis compounds. It's a fundamental system we all have, humans, most vertebrates, actually.
The ECS, I hear that term a lot. Can you break it down? What is it, and what does it do for us?
Think of it like your body's internal balancing act manager. It's constantly working to maintain stability, what scientists call homeostasis. It's a complex network molecules called endocannabinoids that our bodies make, receptors they bind to, and enzymes that break them down. And it regulates a huge range of things: mood, sleep, appetite, pain, immune function, memory, stress response. It's incredibly important. Your body's master regulator working behind the scenes.
Like an internal control panel constantly adjusting things. Okay. So how do cannabinoids from plants like CBG plug into this system?
They interact mainly with the cannabinoid receptors. There are two main types, CB1 and CB2. CB1 receptors are mostly found in the central nervous system, brain, spinal cord, nerves. They influence things like mood, memory, motor control, appetite.
Brain and nerves.
Okay. CB2. CB2 receptors are mainly outside the central nervous system. You find them heavily in the immune system, but also in the gut, spleen, bones, skin. They're more involved in regulating inflammation, immune responses, and pain signaling in the body's tissues. And here's the fascinating part. These plant-based cannabinoids, like CBG, are shaped similarly to our own internal endocannabinoids. So they can interact with these receptors, act like messengers within the ECS, just like our body's own molecules do. It's why they have effects.
Oh, so they speak the body's language, essentially. But you said CBG interacts differently than THC. Can you explain that difference? That seems key to why it's not psychoactive.
Yes, this is absolutely crucial. THC directly binds to and activates CB1 receptors strongly, especially in the brain, and that's what causes the high. CBG also binds to both CB1 and CB2 receptors, but here's the difference. It binds without strongly activating them in the same way. It's more like it modulates them. It influences the receptor's ability to bind with other things, or it influences the overall tone of the ECS.
So it's not flipping the switch on, but maybe adjusting the dimmer, influencing the system more subtly.
Exactly. That's a great analogy. It's modulating, fine-tuning, helping the system maintain balance, rather than forcing a strong activation like THC does. This unique interaction is likely why it can have such diverse potential benefits without the intoxication. It helps the body regulate itself better.
Okay, this is where it gets really practical for people. Let's unpack those potential benefits. Anxiety and mood seem to be top of the list in the research and what people report. How does CBG help there?
Yeah, the anti-anxiety effects are definitely one of the most highlighted areas. And there seem to be a few ways it works. First, there's evidence it has a muscle relaxing effect, that physical tension we hold when we're stressed or anxious. CBG seems to help ease that. And since that tension is tied to the nervous system, relaxing the muscles can send feedback signals that help calm the mind too.
Makes sense, that mind-body connection. But it goes deeper, neurologically, right? Affecting neurotransmitters.
It does. Research suggests CBG interacts with certain receptors in the brain, like the A2 adrenergic receptors, activating those, plus helping the brain absorb GABA more effectively. GABA is the main calming neurotransmitter that breaks the brain, essentially.
Okay, so more GABA influencing these other receptors. What does that translate to for mood and focus?
Well, the downstream effect seems to be a boost in dopamine levels. Dopamine isn't just about pleasure. It's key for motivation, focus, and that sense of well-being. So boosting dopamine in a balanced way can create this relaxing effect on both mind and body, easing stress, potentially lifting symptoms of depression and anxiety. And because dopamine is tied to focus, it might also explain why some people report feeling more clear-headed and energetic, not just calm. It's quite comprehensive.
Right, not just sedation, but potentially upliftment and clarity too. That's really interesting. And I saw a connection to serotonin mentioned as well, another huge mood regulator.
Yes, that's another pathway. Studies show CBG can act as what's called a 5-HT1A receptor antagonist. Basically, it can block or modulate this specific serotonin receptor. The result of that interaction can be an increase in available serotonin levels in the brain.
And more serotonin is generally linked to better mood, less anxiety?
Generally speaking, yes. Serotonin is fundamental for mood regulation, feelings of well-being, even sleep and appetite. So the fact that CBG might influence both dopamine and serotonin pathways really highlights its potential for broad support of mental wellness. It's hitting multiple targets.
Okay, that's the science of the mechanisms. But what about people's actual experiences? Our notes mention a patient survey, the first one focusing on users of CBG-heavy cannabis. What did that find?
Yeah, that survey is really insightful. It involved 127 people using CBG-predominant cannabis. Over half, 51.2%, said they used it purely for medical reasons. Another 36% used it for both medical and recreational purposes. So a big chunk were specifically seeking it out for health support.
And what conditions were they mainly using it for?
The top reasons were anxiety, that was number one, at 51.2%. Then chronic pain at 40.9%, depression at 33.1%, and insomnia or sleep issues at 30.7%.
Yeah.
So really common, often difficult to manage conditions that significantly impact quality of life.
And the big question, did they feel it worked? How effective did they find it?
The results were overwhelmingly positive. Most users reported their symptoms were very much improved or much improved. But the really striking part was the comparison they made to conventional medicines they'd tried before.
Ah, yes. How did CBG stack up against traditional treatments in their view?
The numbers are pretty eye-opening. For anxiety, 78.3% said the CBG-rich cannabis was better than conventional meds. For depression, it was even higher. 80% said it was better. For chronic pain, 73.9% preferred it. And for insomnia, 73%.
Yeah.
Really strong endorsements from the users themselves.
Wow, those percentages are incredibly high. Now, obviously, this is self-reported, not a clinical trial, but still, what does that kind of feedback suggest for research, for individuals making choices?
It's significant. While it's not definitive scientific proof, this kind of real-world evidence is invaluable. It strongly suggests that, for many people, CBG offers a level of relief they weren't getting from conventional options, possibly with fewer side effects. It certainly points researchers toward areas needing more investigation. And for you, the listener, it suggests CBG is definitely something worth discussing with your doctor, perhaps exploring as part of a personalized wellness plan, especially if other things haven't worked well. It highlights the value of individual experience.
Absolutely. Okay, beyond anxiety and depression, which are clearly major areas, what other benefits does CBG seem to offer? Our sources hinted it was quite versatile.
It really does seem to have a broad range of actions. Pain relief, as mentioned in the survey, is another common report, easing body aches and general discomfort. This could be linked to its interaction with pain pathways, but also its anti-inflammatory effects.
Anti-inflammatory, that's a big one these days. Inflammation being linked to so many issues.
Exactly. CBG shows potent anti-inflammatory properties in studies. Since chronic inflammation is thought to underlie many health problems, arthritis, gut issues, even heart disease, reducing it can have widespread benefits. So that's a really significant potential benefit for overall long-term health.
Definitely. What else stood out?
We already touched on energy and focus, potentially linked to dopamine. There's also mention of it being an appetite stimulant, which could be helpful in specific situations like eating disorders or appetite loss from medical treatments. And interestingly, antibacterial properties were also noted in the source material.
Antibacterial too. Wow. So pain, inflammation, energy, focus, appetite, antibacterial. It really does cover a lot of ground.
It does. It suggests CBG isn't just targeting one thing, but maybe helping to modulate several bodily systems, promoting overall balance. That's why there's so much research interest.
For sure. Now, with all these potential positives, we have to ask about the downsides. What about side effects? Is CBG safe to use?
That's always a crucial question. And the good news is, CBG appears to be very well tolerated. Adverse effects are reported as mild and quite rare. Most users, in fact, report experiencing no side effects at all.
Really? Most people have no issues.
That seems to be the case. The very few side effects that are occasionally mentioned are typically things like mild dry mouth or dry eyes. These are pretty common with many cannabinoids, but with CBG they seem infrequent and not severe. Compared to the side effect profiles of many pharmaceuticals used for similar conditions, CBG looks very favorable in terms of safety.
That's definitely reassuring for anyone considering it. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. We've talked a lot about CBG, but people are often more familiar with CBD. They seem similar, often found together. How do they actually differ in what they do, and why does combining them seem to be important?
Great question, because they do work differently, even if their benefits overlap sometimes. Think back to how CBG interacts directly with the CB1 and CB2 receptors, modulating them.
Right, the dimmer switch idea.
Exactly. CBD's action is generally more indirect. It doesn't bind strongly to CB1 or CB2 itself. Instead, it seems to work through other pathways. It can influence enzymes, making your body's own endocannabinoids stick around longer. It also interacts with other receptor systems like serotonin receptors and ion channels. It's more of a system-wide influencer, helping your ECS function better overall.
So CBG is more direct at the cannabinoid receptors, CBD is more indirect, working through other mechanisms to support the whole system.
That's a good way to summarize it. They have distinct primary mechanisms, and this difference is likely why they work so well together. Which brings us to the entourage effect.
The entourage effect. That term comes up constantly with cannabis compounds. Explain what it means in this context.
It's a really key concept. The idea is that the various compounds in the cannabis, plant cannabinoids like CBG and CBD, but also terpenes, which give the scent and flavor, and flavonoids, pigments, work better together than they do in isolation. It's synergy. The combined effect is greater than the sum of the individual parts. 1 plus 1 doesn't equal 2, it equals 3, or maybe even 4, therapeutically speaking.
So taking CBG and CBD together is more effective than taking either one alone.
The evidence strongly suggests that yes, the entourage effect seems particularly strong when CBG and CBD are combined. That's why high-quality, full-spectrum CBD products, which aim to keep all the plant's natural compounds together, often contain noticeable amounts of CBG as part of that natural synergy. The compounds enhance and balance each other's effects.
Okay, so for you listening, if you want the maximum potential benefit, looking for a product with both CBG and CBD might be the way to go.
Generally, yes. That's why the recommendation is often to opt for a full-spectrum or broad-spectrum product if you want to harness that entourage effect. Full spectrum contains everything, including that trace THC under 0.3%. Broad spectrum contains everything except the THC, which is removed. Understanding this can help you choose a product more likely to deliver the results you're looking for, leveraging that natural teamwork between the compounds.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, armed with all this knowledge, someone might be thinking, right, I want to try CBG, but then they look online or go into a store and wow, there are a lot of options. How do you even start navigating the market? First, what kinds of products are actually out there?
Yeah, the variety has definitely exploded,
Mhm.
which is great, but can be confusing. You've got CBG oils and tinctures. Those are very popular. You take them under the ton, usually. Good for dosage control. Then there are gummies and other edibles. Super convenient, taste better usually, but take longer to kick in because they go through your digestive system. You can also find smokable CBG hemp flower if inhalation is preferred. And for targeted relief, like sore muscles, there are topicals, creams, balms infused with CBG, lots of choices depending on preference and need.
Okay, quite a range. So you pick a format,
Yeah.
but how do you know if the product itself is any good? What are the absolute must-check things when buying?
This is critical. Quality control can vary, so you need to be a smart shopper. There are a few key factors. First, look at potency. How many milligrams of CBG are actually in the product per serving or per bottle? This tells you the concentration. A higher potency might cost more up front, but could be more effective and last longer. You need to know how much active ingredient you're getting.
Right, potency tells you the strength. Makes sense. What's next?
Ingredients. Read the label carefully. You want high quality, ideally organic, natural ingredients. Check that it's explicitly hemp-derived. Avoid artificial flavors, colors, unnecessary fillers. Look for GMO-free. Often, simpler is better, maybe just hemp extract and a carrier oil like MCT oil. This reduces the risk of contaminants like pesticides or heavy metals.
Good advice. Quality ingredients are key. How do you verify the company's claims, though? How do you trust the brand?
That's where credibility and transparency come in. This is huge. Reputable brands will provide easy access to third-party lab reports. These are often called certificates of analysis or COAs. Look for them on the website. They should confirm the amount of CBG and other cannabinoids, verify the THC is below 0.3%, and crucially show testing for contaminants like pesticides, heavy metals, solvents, mold. Third-party testing means it's unbiased. Also, does the company offer a money-back guarantee? That shows they stand by their product.
Okay, so check potency, ingredients, and demand that third-party lab report for transparency. Excellent checklist. What about price? It can vary wildly. How do you judge value?
Price is tricky. Super cheap is often a red flag. Quality costs money. Organic farming, clean extraction, testing. It adds up. A useful way to compare is to calculate the price per milligram of CBG. Divide the total cost by the total milligrams of CBG in the product. Our sources suggest the average market price is roughly 0.14 cents per milligram right now. That gives you a benchmark. If something is way cheaper, you have to wonder why. Is the potency accurate? Is it clean? Remember the old saying, if it sounds too good to be true.
That price per milligram calculation is really helpful for comparing apples to apples. Thanks. And for those of you listening who are curious now and want to start looking at quality options that meet these standards, a great place to begin your research and find a variety of vetted CBG products is biowellnessx.com. They really focus on that quality and transparency, plus they deliver nationwide and discreet packaging, which is convenient. All right, now that we know how to choose a quality product generally, let's look at some specific examples or types based on goals. Like for anxiety, our source material mentions specific types of gummies. How would you choose based on the desired effect?
Yeah, tailoring the product to the need makes sense. For instance, if your anxiety manifests as brain fog or difficulty concentrating, and you need something for daytime productivity, you might look for gummies specifically marketed for focus.
Okay, focus is gummies. What would be in those typically?
They're often full spectrum, combining CBG, CBD, and maybe other minor cannabinoids known for promoting clarity. Potency might be higher, say up to 75 milligram total cannabinoids per gummy in some cases. The goal is to leverage that entourage effect for mental sharpness, not sedation. People describe the effect like a curtain being lifted, allowing for better concentration.
A curtain being lifted? I like that. Sounds ideal for work or study, but what if you need the opposite, like winding down, de-stressing at the end of the day?
Right. Then you'd look for products perhaps labeled mellow or calm. These would also likely combine CBG and CBD, maybe in different ratios optimized for relaxation. The aim is to ease tension, quiet the mind, feel a bit lighter, help you shift gears and relax rather than focus. It's about intention.
Makes sense. Choosing based on whether you need to lift the curtain or draw the shades, so to speak. What about oils? If someone prefers oil over gummies for anxiety, what should they look for?
For oils, the gold standard mentioned in our sources is a CBG-rich PCR oil. PCR stands for phytocannabinoid-rich. It basically signifies a high-quality, full-spectrum or broad-spectrum oil designed to give you that whole plant experience.
Whole plant experience, what does that practically mean? How is it different from other oils?
It means the oil contains not just CBG and CBD, but also the naturally occurring terpenes, flavonoids, other minor cannabinoids, fatty acids, etc., that were present in the original hemp plant. A good example might be an oil with, say, 2,000 milligrams of full-spectrum PCR oil boosted with another 1,000 milligrams of CBG isolate, for a total of 3,000 milligrams. Ingredients should be simple: organic hemp extract, maybe MCT oil as a carrier. And crucially, it's truly full spectrum, meaning these compounds weren't extracted separately and then mixed back together. They were preserved together from the start. Our sources emphasize you can't call it true full spectrum if it's just recombined isolates. That natural complexity is key for the entourage effect.
Got it. Aim for that natural synergy preserved in the oil.
Yeah.
Lastly, what about smokable CBG flower? Is that a good option, say, for anxiety?
It's an option, definitely, but the sources offer a bit of caution here. Finding consistently high-quality CBG flower can be trickier than finding good CBD flower. The genetics are newer, so quality and potency can vary quite a bit between brands, or even different harvests from the same brand.
So maybe less reliable than oils or gummies for consistent effects.
Potentially, yes. That's why oils and gummies are often suggested as a safer bet for predictability. But if you do want to explore flower, some promising strains mentioned are white CBG, sour G, Desert Snow CBG, White Widow, and Jack Frost. These are names to look out for.
Good to know. Okay, we've covered a ton of ground. Let's tackle those last two big questions. Legality across the board, and the high question once more for clarity. Rant us about the legal status again.
Okay, federally in the U.S., thanks to the 2018 Farm Bill, hemp and its derivatives, including CBG, are legal. The absolute key is that the final product must contain less than 0.3% delta-9 THC by dry weight. That's the federal line.
But states can have their own rules, right?
It's exactly. While it's federally legal, states can have stricter laws. Some states might regulate hemp products differently. Also, if you're in a state where marijuana is legal recreationally, you might find products in dispensaries that have higher THC levels, maybe delta-8 or more delta-9 combined with CBG. Those are legal under state marijuana laws but wouldn't be considered federally legal hemp products. So the bottom line is, always, always check the THC content on the label and know your local state laws. It's crucial.
Definitely pays to be informed. Which brings us back to the big question. Can CBG get you high? Let's put a final pin in that.
Right. Let's be crystal clear. Isolated CBG on its own is non-psychoactive. It will not make you feel high or intoxicated. Full stop. However, and this is the nuance with full-spectrum products.
The entourage effect, making things interesting again.
Precisely. Because full-spectrum products contain that tiny legal amount of THC, less than 0.3%, when combined with CBG and everything else. Some users might experience what they describe as a very mild sense of euphoria or enhanced well-being. It's not usually intoxication, but a subtle shift. How noticeable this is depends hugely on the product's exact cannabinoid ratio and your personal sensitivity. But the core point stands. The high doesn't come from the CBG itself. Any feeling like that in a full-spectrum product is due to the synergistic effect, primarily involving that trace THC.
Okay, that's a very clear distinction. CBG itself is non-psychoactive. The subtle effects in full-spectrum products come from the whole blend. So, wrapping up this deep dive on cannabigerol, what are the absolute main takeaways for our listeners?
I think the key things are CBG shows real promise, backed by both science and user reports, for helping with anxiety, boosting energy and focus, and addressing pain and depression. It's versatile. It works uniquely with our body's own endocannabinoid system, modulating it rather than forcing it.
And that synergy, working with other cannabinoids like CBD, is vital for getting the most out of it, isn't it?
Absolutely critical. Remember the entourage effect. For maximizing benefits, full spectrum or broad spectrum products containing both CBG and CBD are generally recommended. Leverage that natural teamwork.
And it's important to remember, isn't it, that research is still ongoing. We're learning more all the time.
Definitely. While what we know is promising, scientists are still exploring all the potential effects of CBG. Gut health, neuroprotection. There's more to uncover. And we'll definitely keep you updated here as significant new findings come out. That's what the deep dive is all about.
For sure. Staying curious.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. As we learn more about how these plant compounds like CBG interact so intricately with our own internal systems, what does that tell us about the future of wellness? How might it shift our view of personalized health, of finding balance in, our often very unbalanced world? That makes you think about self-care differently.
It really does. A great question for reflection. And if you're feeling inspired to explore CBG further after this discussion, we encourage you to check out the range of quality products over at biowellnessx.com. Also, to stay plugged into the latest research, news, and offers, do follow them on social media. It's BioWellness Sync on Facebook, BioWellness Sync on Instagram, and BioWellnessX on Pinterest. Well, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us as we explored cannabigerol. We really hope this gave you some valuable insights and clear, practical information.
Yes, thank you for tuning in. We appreciate your curiosity and your commitment to understanding your wellness options. Remember, knowledge is powerful, especially when you can apply it. And the learning journey never really ends, does it?
It certainly doesn't. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep. Thanks for listening to Voices of BioWellnessX with Daniel and Sophie.